This live stream is brought to you by Still and Evergreen Garden Care. Still is Australia's most trusted brand of garden power tools, backed by 95 years of German engineering excellence. To get your hands on their range, visit your local Still dealer today or visit still.com.au. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the best known and trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. To be inspired and easily create and maintain your garden, head to lovethegarden.com.
Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.
Good morning and hello gardeners out there. Welcome to the Garden Guru Live. I'm Joanne Harris and it's great to be back with you this Monday morning. I'm filling in for Trevor, who's having some well-deserved time with his family today, but he'll be back next week. So we've got a fabulous show for you. We'll be answering lots of questions and as many as we possibly can. We're also going to have it's time to dream big and give your garden every advantage. So we'll be sharing a special offer to help you achieve your garden dreams. And it's time to give your plants now some extra love before that colder weather sets in. So I'll be showing you how to do that. I've got a plant of the week. In fact, it never is a plant of the week. We've got hibiscus this week, and I'll be showing you 3 different types of hibiscus. Let's get on with it. But make sure that you hit the like button and share the views. Post your questions with your chance to win. Make sure that you let me know what your state and the city is. It makes it much easier for me to answer that question for you. So let's get straight on to some questions. Jackie hasn't let us know where she's from, so it's unknown. But she's looking for a Bernard Mas rose. This is a rose that's grown in France, and she's contacted the grower, but he's unable to ship that to her. Would you know who I could contact here in Australia that would be able to ship one for me? I know it will cost a small fortune, which it will, but I can't find any other flower with the name of Bernard anywhere, and she's trying to get one in memorial for her late husband. Well, Jackie, there's a couple of things that I guess I would suggest that you do is you could try, I'm not sure what state you're from, so I can't guide you towards one of the rose growers, but I would look at one of the bigger rose growers, maybe even one that grows some of the roses that do come out of France. I know if you're in West Australia, you could give Robbie Melville up at Melville Roses a ring. He would certainly have some information for you. Now, the rose growers, of course, they bring in hundreds at a time. So whether or not they want to bring in the Bernard Mas one or use it, it may not be. So it may be an impossible thing for you to do. But you could also, if you don't know who to call, try ringing your local nursery and garden industry or Garden Industry of Australia office. There is one in each state, and you could ring them and they may be able to put you on to who would know or how you could go about it. I suspect that you probably won't be able to get the rose in unless, fortunately, someone wants to bring that one in for you. Otherwise, you could always look for a plant that maybe the person that found the plant is called Bernard and that's in the name. So I don't know. I'm sorry, that's as much as we can give on that one. But try a rose grower or the nursery industry. Okay, so Paula is in Perth in Thornley. That's in South Perth, south of the city at least. If I cut my jacaranda back, will it still flower in September and October, or should I wait until it's flowered? You don't have to wait till it's flowered, Paula, but you do need to wait until the beginning of spring. So when the new growth is coming out, jacarandas flower on new growth. So it's fine to cut them back, and you'll still get some good growth. But it's better to do it when they're coming into spring, when they're going to grow for you, rather than in winter when things go more dormant, and then the plant has more chance of ending up with some sort of fungal disease from cutting it now. So yeah, wait till spring and early spring. So we're moving on now, and we're moving on to Kerry, and Kerry's in New South Wales. And she says, "Good morning. I have a tree fern that's been in my family for approximately 90 years. This year it produced orange seed pods, and I don't know what to do with them." Well, actually, Kerry, we've got a photo coming up for you too. This is actually not a tree fern. This is a cycad. But how amazing for you to have had it for 90 years. Cycads are thought to be back from the dinosaur era. So they and the dinosaurs lived together. So they are a very hardy and a wonderful plant to have, especially for 90 years. That's quite amazing. Look, the orange seed pods, you can propagate from those. And what I would do with them is take each of the seeds out and put them into a plastic bag with some water and leave them for maybe 4 or 5 days. The cells, the skin on the outside will soften, and it's almost like blanching a tomato. You can pull that skin off. And then you want to know whether it's a viable seed or not. And by checking that is by putting it into, say, a bucket or a vessel of water. And the seeds that drop and go to the sink to the bottom, they'll be the viable ones. Anything that floats, don't bother trying to propagate them. Then I would get a low and wide pot. So you don't want too much potting mix in it. And I would use something like seed raising mix. And in the seed raising mix, I tend to put a bit more perlite into it to make it more open. Then push the seed into the soil, but make sure the top of the seed is seen. It likes to be out in the air. It can take between 6 and 12 months for it to develop, but it's well worth a try. And you've got the next generation for the next generation of your house. So maybe your grandchildren will be saying that they've got the original plus something else, plus the new ones. Have fun with that. It's not edible, so it's not an edible fruit, but nor is it poisonous to dogs, cats, horses. So it's a safe one to have around. All right, so I hope that helps, and that you get some more babes out of that one. So the next one we're looking at is Samantha, and Samantha's also in Perth. And she said, "Hello, I love your show and I love gardening. Not the best gardener, but I try." There's lots of us out there like that, Samantha. "I have a backyard full of sand, and there's lots of us in Perth like that also. I need help. Can you recommend anyone that could landscape at a reasonable price? I'm a single parent and I would love to have a nice yard. Are there any episodes that I could watch that would give me ideas? And I know it's a big ask, but thank you, and I appreciate any information." Well, look, Samantha, it's great that you want to get into your garden. And as a single parent, I'm assuming that you really do want reasonable price, meaning that it needs to be on the lower end of the market. So one of the things I would suggest, there are lots of landscapers, there's lots of designers out there that can help you, and you could go to their website. Walder is one of them, or the landscape industry of WA is another one that you could go to, and you could then choose from those somebody to call. However, you are going to pay more of a professional price for that. So I guess what I would suggest to you, that maybe go down to one of the local garden centres. Certainly if you're around the Guilford area, we provide this service. And start talking to the horticulturalists there and ask them about your soil and ask them how to prepare your soil and what you need to do. So that if you need to go and get someone, say off Gumtree or Facebook or something like that, and someone to help you in your garden that's perhaps not a professional horticulturalist, then at least you're armed with all the information you need. So yeah, call down to a garden centre and then maybe look on those places. I know that there's often people out there that are gardeners that would like to help out. And as long as you've got a good understanding of what is required for your soil, then you can trust someone, you can work with them, and cut out some of the costs that it might be if you go to a professional landscaper. Good luck with that, and call around. You'll find there is garden centres out there, especially in Perth, that I know of, that will give you that help, and just ask for a horticulturalist, which in the garden centres most of us are. All right, so all the best with that, Samantha. So with Fadia, and we're not sure where Fadia is from, but it's probably not too much of a problem to worry about that, because she's asking, or is Fadia he perhaps? Could you please tell me what's wrong with my peace lily? So I would think from the picture that I can see some cells have broken down on the leaves of this. The first thing I wondered was whether you had sprayed it with some horticultural oil to shine up the leaves, because they do look nice and shiny. And if you use a really heavy oil, or if you use too much, and I'm not sure spathiphyllums particularly like horticultural oil either, and it can break down the cells of the plant. Or the other thing that could have happened is that you may have had your air conditioner on or heater, and it's blown down onto that plant and it's affected it. But I'm perhaps leaning towards the oil, and yeah, if it is, stop using the oil. And as an idea too, instead of using horticultural oil, if you use 1 part milk and 10 parts water and a soft cloth and wipe that over the larger leaves of things like your spathiphyllum, you'll clean all the dust off. You'll leave it looking kind of shiny, but you're not smothering the cells and therefore having that cell breakdown that I can see in yours. So that might help, and in future use that method. So Magdalene is from Perth, and she says, why have my 10 rose bushes died? Stunted, buds are tiny. My chili plants have died too. Was it okay? They were okay when we bought them, but the leaves are now curly. Well, this is, unfortunately, Magdalene, this I would imagine is chili thrip, and it's affecting all the roses in Perth at the moment. Although I did read in an article recently in a horticultural magazine that Perth seems to be coping with it better than a number of the other states. I'm not sure that many of my customers would say that, given that this is one of the biggest things that we're dealing with at the moment with people coming into the shop. So it's a problem that's been around for a couple of years in Perth. In fact, I think maybe 3 years now, and it took us a year to really work out what it was. But chili thrip comes in with the winds, and of course that's what we've had recently. You'll find that you get the leaves will curl and ruffle on the edges and go sort of black, quite a dark brown or a black on the edges. The flowers won't develop, and it's the thrip in the flowers. So it's worth treating that for 3 to 4 weeks with something like Success or even EcoFend. EcoFend and Success both leave less residual in the ground, and you can use Success and EcoFend on vegetables too, like on your chilies. So it's not going to damage the fruit, although the chili thrip has already damaged them, I'm afraid. So once you've done a spray 3 weeks in a row, 3 to 4 weeks in a row, then I put on some predator insects that I got from a company on the internet called Bugs for Bugs. It's a Queensland company, and they sent us over. We did the whole of the nursery at the same time as we did my garden, and they send over tubes of live bugs, and we shook those onto various plants, and they then are the natural predators. Now, As I say this, my garden doesn't have any chili thrip this year, but I keep looking for it, and I won't be surprised if I get it again. But last year I had some really good blooms, and I didn't have any problems with it after I did that. So 3 to 4 weeks in a row, spray, and then get some bugs onto it, and hopefully that will help. If you have, a lot of people say to cut them back, to cut back the plant. I tend not to, because if you do cut the plant back, you've then got new growth, and it's the new growth that the chili thrip likes. So what I tend to do, because often the thrip is in the bud of the rose, so I'll take the bud off, just snap it off, and then hopefully you've got rid of some of those bugs too. So good luck with that, Magdalene. You're not alone, but that doesn't help, does it? I hope my information has helped you this morning. Okay, so we're off to Officer in Victoria, and Jacinda has asked, can you please help me with the best way to get rid of soil weevils, please? They're eating our feijoa leaves and can't seem to get rid of them. They disappear over winter and revisit in summer. They overwinter in the soil, and that's why you don't see them at that time. They're usually the best time to find them is now, and I would suggest that you need to get down to your garden centre and get something to get rid of them, or grab all the children in the neighbourhood, or perhaps you've got grandchildren or any children, and get them out there and start picking them off the leaves. You'll see them mostly first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening before the sun goes down. They're not pleasant, but they won't do too much trouble if you can keep them in hand. There are products that you can spray for, and especially perhaps in the wintertime or when they overwinter, when they go into the soil is the best time to do that. I prefer not to, but if you have a really bad infestation, go down and see your garden centre and they'll give you something that you can use. Okay, so where are we off to now? Oh, okay. So Carol's in Perth, and this was from last week. So I hope you're watching again this week, Carol. When can I plant daffodils and a cutting of the Frangipani? Okay, well, you plant daffodils now. They're all in the shops, and if you've got some from last year and you took them out of your soil and you've kept them in sulphur in a nice warm position, they'll be ready to go into the ground now. So daffodils now. Wait for your tulips. It's the only thing that I wait until the end of June to plant. But otherwise, daffodils, get those in the ground now. And then your Frangipani cutting. Well, you can take a Frangipani cutting any time of the year, but I find it easier to do it in spring through to autumn time. You'll find there that and you want to take a softwood cutting if you take it in the springtime. Cut it, leave it for a few days laying in the sun somewhere so it dries out, and then you can plant it from there. If you're doing it in the wintertime, which is easier because often it's not full of leaves and flowers, you want to go back into the hardwood to cut back into the hardwood. And when I say hardwood, the hardwood is where the bark has gone grey. So that is an indication. They're pretty easy to do, and you can propagate Frangipanis relatively easily, so it'll be good fun. Now, talking about bulbs, it's that time of the year when you do get your spring flowering bulbs in, and there's a few things that we have here to make maybe the job easier. Our friends at Garden Express are the experts in spring flowering bulbs and have the perfect kit for you to dream. Gosh, I'm doing well today. I'm sorry. A perfect kit for you to create your dream garden. All right. We actually buy our bulbs for the nursery off Garden Express. I find they're one of the best qualities around, and I really like all their products. They tend to choose a quality product so you can feel safe in buying them. And this week, there's a kit that you can save more than 40% on this collection of hard goods that perfectly complement the garden with bulbs. So in that kit, you've got a kneeling cushion, or I call them kneeling pad, kneeling cushion, kneeling pad. They're fantastic to have. I find I can't kneel on my knees as well now. So I like using a kneeling cushion. I've in fact got two. So I use one outside in my garden all the time when I'm weeding, etc. Much better than bending over. And I have one for inside. So I often talk about my grandchildren, but I use it when I'm bathing them. So I kneel on it inside. So maybe one or two, but it's a great thing to have for the garden. A bulb planter is in this kit also, and they're fantastic, especially if you're in heavier soil. It's much easier. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're like a cylindrical stainless steel with a handle on it that you press, and it opens up. You put it into the soil, you close it, and it holds the soil as you lift it out, and you can pop your bulb in. Let's not forget that you want to go down twice the depth or twice the width of that bulb. We used to say once, but now because of the heat, we're saying, especially in Perth, go down lower. So yeah, a bulb planter is a fabulous thing to have. It's also then got a pack of 3 bulbs, bulb baskets at least. So you're going to get some bulbs in this also. And I know that from talking with the guys at Garden Express a couple of weeks ago, they choose bulbs that are generally good for most of Australia. So they're not going to be ones that just Tasmania use. So you can feel really confident in buying this. They've got the soft garden ties, which are always fabulous to have, and it's a must in your garden pack. Then there's also these really good little planters, plant markers, and they're plastic. But they're usable over and over and over again. You can write on them with a pen and then take it off. I actually use like a fly spray and it comes off really easily, or nail polish remover if you have one. That'll take the marker off too. So you can reuse them really easily. And they have a long, thin shaft on them, so you're not putting something big into your soil and damaging your roots. It's a nice, easy way to do it. Then they've got some long-lasting bulb food in there too. It's 850 grams. It's a liquid fertilizer. And we all know that you want to fertilize your bulbs when they're dying. So you can fertilize them as they're growing, but you must fertilize them as they're dying, because that's when the bulb, as they flower, they shrink. And then as they die, you feed them and they feed up the bulb and it produces another bulb with it, and hopefully it multiplies. So that's why it's most important. And then you let the leaves die completely down before you remove them from the soil, or before you cut off the leaves if you're going to leave them in your soil. So the next thing they've got in that pack is also peat pots. If you use peat pots to propagate, there's a pack of 30. And last but not least, you've got yourself a free pair of gardening gloves. I don't know about you, but I go through a lot of those during the year, so it's well worth it. Look, this kit is normally around about $99, I think it is, or just over $99. And they're now selling this to you for $55 and I think 50 cents. But it's a really good buy. As I said before, I buy off Garden Express for our garden centre because they have such good quality on everything they do. So you can feel really comfortable in purchasing this bargain. So thanks to the Garden Express guys. Now let's get back to some questions. And please remember to include your state, and don't forget to hit the like button. So we're on to Michael, and Michael is in Kilmore in Victoria, and he's also from last week's show. And he's got 2 passion fruit trees. When should I feed it and cut it back? Well, feeding is now. So you want to feed it now before it goes dormant in the wintertime. And then again in spring as it's coming out of dormancy is a good idea to give it another feed. Passion fruit, you want to cut these back. You don't have to cut a passion fruit back unless it's to control the growth. Okay, you don't need to do it for it to fruit. It'll continue to fruit even if you don't cut it back. But it's a good idea to cut it back in the springtime. Avoid the main stem. You only want to cut the tendrils. You don't want to cut the main stem ever. And yep, that's all you need to do. So trim it back. If you're doing it for the aesthetics of it, then yeah, springtime is your best time to do it. And hopefully you'll get loads and loads of passion fruit. So Mitzi in Shoal Bay, New South Wales. This one's also from last week's show. What was Trevor doing? I bet he was talking really hard and fast and getting through all of them. And I know that we're getting so many questions. So if we don't get to your question today, I'm very sorry. Hold on to it and we'll bring it up again for next week. Okay, so Mitzi from Shoal Bay. Love some ideas for soft, small plants to put next to a driveway that won't get too busy. So I'm assuming that your driveway is not too busy, or are you meaning that you don't want plants that get too busy, too fussy, too much maintenance, etc.? There's all sorts of things that we could suggest to you, Mitzi. I know that if you're looking for something like a ground cover, I love using, it's a plant called Daimondia. You can virtually, you know how sometimes you see old-fashioned driveways with the middle is still soil. I've often used Daimondia down that way, or I use Daimondia even on verges where you've got lots of, teenage kids in the family. And when I'm designing a garden, you know you've got teenage kids, so therefore Friday night you've probably got 3 or 4 cars parked on your verge. Daimondia is a plant that will take it, so it's a very tough plant. It's very pretty. It's a mid-green with a grey underneath the leaf and a lovely yellow daisy. So that would make it, especially if people step out of their car and tend to step onto the garden bed, then something like Daimondia is really good. Using something like a shrub, you could use limonium, which is a status. It's extremely easy to grow, flowers for so much of the year, so it would always be very pretty. Lots of small grevilleas. And there's a lot of grevilleas out there now that aren't as prickly as what we think of grevilleas as being, so you could use a lot of grevilleas too. Look, there's so much that we could talk about that you could use. Get down to your garden centre again and have a chat with some of the horticulturalists there, and I know they'll be able to help you with that. So, and you'll have a beautiful driveway that doesn't get too busy. All right, Leonie. And Leonie is in Adelaide. I've recently put in new good potting mix into my half-hanging basket on my fence. I bought some pansies, and when planting them, I also mixed in some extra water-saving crystals. However, the water still runs out the bottom, and I'm watering every day as they're dry. There also seems to be aphids and some stems in the last few days. Please help. Okay. So when a plant is struggling, that's when bugs and aphids and things tend to, it's a little bit like us. When we're low-ebbed, we end up getting everybody's flu. Same with plants. So it may be that we start looking at how to make your plants healthier and you'll have less of the bugs around also. So when you say you used a good potting mix, I'm assuming that that's a potting mix with some wetting agent in it. If not, I think wetting agent is a really good place to start, and you might want to put some in to help the plant, the soil hold the moisture. You're always going to have water running out the bottom because you want water that holds moisture but is well drained, so gets rid of the extra water. So that's not so much of a problem as long as the plants are kept, the moisture is kept in amongst the plants. When you put a half basket on a wall, on a fence or a wall, they're not deep. They're not the depth of them. There's not a lot of soil in there to keep moist. And it can be, if it's on a hot wall or in a position where it's full sun, it's a little bit like putting a mini mine of you haven't got enough soil in there. Okay, so you need to keep the wetting agent in it. I'm not convinced by water crystals because they can dry out and then you have to try and re-wet them. And re-wetting soil can often be hard. So I believe that wetting agent is a better way to go with it. As far as your aphids go, get something like Success or EcoFend, and that should get rid of the aphids for you. Or get out there and squash the stems with your finger and get rid of them that way. But plant bugs will come back to your garden naturally anyway, and certain plants will be affected if they're not healthy. So let's get it healthy. Okay, Sophie, and Sophie, we're not sure where you're from either. However, Sophie is looking at spider mite solutions, and do pest control bugs work? They absolutely do. They really do work well. And if you, the company that I've been using is bugsforbugs.com.au. They're a Queensland-based company, but their product comes very quickly in an express bag, or perhaps even by plane. But they come quickly, so that the bugs are in good condition. I've never had any problems with the bugs coming, and they haven't been alive and doing their job. So yeah, you can try that. There are a couple of good miticides out there too. I know that Searles have a miticide that is not as dangerous as what a lot of them have been. So yeah, you can certainly use that. Okay, so Glenn, and Glenn is from the Gold Coast, and Glenn's asking, we have just found that we have a guava tree. Can you please tell me how to look after it? Does it need any special requirements? Should we pick the fruit while they are slightly green so the birds don't get it, or does it need to be ripened on the trees? Many thanks for your help. Okay, I think it can be ripened on the tree, but I also think you can take them off almost ripe and put them in a paper bag. And I think it's exactly the same as what you do with an avocado, and you can put a banana in that plastic bag, in the paper bag at least, and that will help them ripen. How to look after it? You need to feed that with a good mineral fertilizer, some good mulch, so feed around the drip line. Make sure that just keep it clean and clear of bugs. And I don't think it gets attacked by a lot of anything necessarily. Perhaps some scale is what you'd need to look for. But otherwise, they're relatively easy to look after. And they're a really pretty shrub, I think, especially when they're fruiting. So, yeah, easy to look after. And thanks for your question, Glenn. Tyson from Baronia, Victoria. Hey, Tyson, how are you this week? All right, so he has a question. When is it a good time for me to plant corn? Corn is not now, Tyson. Corn you want to plant in springtime, or just early spring is when you'd plant corn seeds. Tomatoes, you can plant those now. But I would, if you're in Baronia, I think you'd probably get a frost. So I would be keeping those covered, and perhaps we don't deal with frost here, but I think frost, you probably best say late winter to put your tomato seedlings in, and maybe put them into a seedling tray and germinate them that way. Okay. I'm sorry, you were asking about seedlings, not seed. So seedlings for both of those are spring. It's an easy answer. Sorry, Tyson. And number 2 question is, can I please put strawberry seeds in my garden bed? Can you please give me some tips and advice? Thank you, Joanne. Okay, so yes, you can put seeds in your garden, but I tend to, with strawberries, put them into hanging baskets. So I'll put them into a seed raising mix in a seed tray, and then once they're past the first immature leaves, I'll then transfer them into baskets. And I use hanging baskets just because it's easier to grow them in. You find you get less pests and diseases. You've always got lots of, like, especially slaters and things, they'll come in, beetles, all sorts of things will eat the actual strawberry. So I find it easier. And referring back to my grandchildren, when they come around and there's strawberries in my pots, I sometimes lift them higher so they can't get them. So it saves them from bugs and from children. But yes, you can certainly grow those in your garden bed. Just keep the fruit up off the soil, and then you'll get less spoiling, Tyson. Nice to hear from you again this week, Tyson. It's great to know that you're constantly watching us and listening, and obviously we're giving you lots of help because you keep coming back. Anyway, Tyson, have a great week. So we move on to Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. And this is Ben, and he's come in through via our YouTube. And he has a pittosporum being attacked by scale. He's applied eco oil, which has killed the majority. How do I remove these so that they can start their recovery? To remove them is just a painful, long session of scraping them off with your fingers. Rub your hands up the stem and pull them off. I actually don't bother. I just make sure. And I usually like to use the eco oil a couple of times. The eco oil that you can use now too, there's one out that's called eco oil. It's a pest oil with, it's hippo enhanced. Now I'm not sure what that acronym means, but what it actually is. But what it essentially means is that the hippo enhancement in the product attracts all the good insects. So the predator insects will come in, and that's always a good one to go for. I like it for that reason. So if you haven't used that one, maybe when you've used up what you've got, have a look at the one that's got hippo advanced. And yeah, just keep on top of the scale. If you squeeze them, you'll know they're dead because they'll be empty, right? If they ooze out, usually bright orange, then you know you've still got some alive, and you need to go back and give it another dose of the eco oil. All right, so I hope that helps, Ben. Okay, so Linda, we have a plant. Linda, we're not sure where you're from either, but is it okay to use both of these on my indoor plants, especially my 2 indoor palms? I see one as a fertilizer and one as a feed. Okay. So one is a fertilizer. They're actually both essentially fertilizers. So your Osmocote pour and feed is excellent because one, because it's an Osmocote product and they do develop really good products, but 2, it's a really easy one to use. You're not having to mix or anything like that. So yes, that's a good fertilizer. I know it's called a feed, but I think that's just a marketing term. It's still a fertilizer. Then you've got Power Feed, which is also a good product. Pots and planters. So that's like they're little perils that it's like a slow release, but this is actually a controlled release. And a controlled release fertilizer is a very good fertilizer to have because it controls the amount of nutrients that it releases. So it's a very slow, controlled release. And it means that your plants, although you're giving them an Osmocote feed, pour and feed, and that's their meal, so to speak, the perils are the vitamins that keep you going on a day-to-day basis. So your plants, and you can use them on any of your indoor plants, they would work really well. So we've gone from Linda. Okay, so now it's time to give you to look at your plants. So we've talked about fertilizer with Linda, okay, and the fertilizer that I'd like to talk about that is this is the time we need to fertilize, okay? When the mornings are much cooler, even though you've got a bit of warmth in the daytime, you need to start fertilizing your garden now. You need to look after your garden with all sorts of things, like you want to mulch it, you want to make sure that you've got rid of all the weeds so that the plants can really thrive while the soil is still moist. And it's really important to have some good fertilizer. So we're looking at an Osmocote product again, so not the liquid one that we talked about with Linda, but this is Scott's Osmocote plus organics all purpose. Okay, now this is a low phosphorus sensitive fertilizer, so you can use it on your natives, your proteas, banksias, all those sort of things also. Okay, it's great if you're living in an area where you've got heavier soil, because there's actually some gypsum in this one. So that'll help provide the plants with some calcium that they need, but it also it'll help break down the gypsum and keep the soil open and allow the nutrients and the water to follow down. Okay, and which of course means then that your roots can become larger and bigger. And that's what we want to do at this time of the year, is you want to feed your plants, but not just to make them look green or to make them look bigger. You want to make sure that the root system is growing really well, so that by winter time when it goes dormant, it's got a really good root system to then head into spring and the heat of summer. So it's important to feed now. The Scott's Osmocote also has some fish extract in it and some seaweed, which we know are both soil and plant conditioners. So again, you're looking after the top and the bottom. You're looking after holistically, you're looking after your plant. The technology that Scott's use for their prills, that's the little tiny balls that they are, it really does ensure that there's an even and controlled nutrient release with no wastage. And I love the fact that Scott's derive all their organics from renewable resources, which is good. I like it. So it's suitable for almost everything: trees, shrubs, flowering plants, leafy plants, climbers, vegetables, all your potted plants you can use it in. They also have, it's interesting, they have a, what's it called? It's a low odor formulation. And it means that although it's got organics in it, as it's breaking down, it's got a much lower smell about it. So if you're not, I'm fine with the smell of manure. I love it, in fact. But if you're not liking it, or if it's in a garden next to a patio or somewhere where you're sitting, something like this is really worth using, because that low formula, it reduces the smell, okay? So the only thing that really you shouldn't be putting this fertilizer on is into hydroponic systems, if that's what you use, and also using it on your lawns. You don't want to put something organic on your lawns. Have a look at one of the Scott's lawn fertilizers. Much better idea than using this. So let's remember that this is the time when you want to look after your soil, look after your plants, get them ready for winter and then spring and summer. The work that you do now will pay off in summer especially. You'll find your plants will be a lot healthier. And we all know, and I keep saying this, but the more you feed your plants on the regular basis, and you use a good quality fertilizer, the less pest and diseases you'll have, and the less chemicals we'll be using to get rid of those pest and diseases. And that's a plus in my mind. Okay, so we're on to plant of the week. And as I said, I can never make it a plant of the week, but I've got one species with lots of varieties. Okay, so I guess in the last few months, and if you're up north and in Queensland, you've probably seen them almost all year round. But I know here in Perth, by December, January, we start seeing all the hibiscus in the shops. And I love it because they're just full of these amazing flowers, and they flower and flower and flower. You know, hibiscus will flower from mid to late spring in Perth all the way through to the end of April, May. So what I decided was most of us are used to seeing the lovely Hawaiian hibiscus, the full, very fluffy flowered ones, the big double ones, or the single beautiful trumpet-like ones. And they come in many different colours. So what I've done today is I've chosen 2 or 3 hibiscus that I thought you may not have heard of. This one is one of my favourite. It's got a slightly bigger leaf. These are small leaves. It's in a small pot. It's only in a 150 ml pot. So the leaves are not as big as what they normally be. They can get much bigger, at least a hand size. It's called and you'll often see it, I believe, wrongly labelled. It's called a Rose of Sharon, but in fact, I know it by Hibiscus mutabilis. Rose of Sharon, I believe, is the Hibiscus syriacus, which is the deciduous form. So this one, you'll notice that the leaves are slightly fluffy underneath, slightly furry. And I just love this. It's a shrub that grows to only 3 meters. You can train it up to be a tree, or you can leave it as a shrub that's multi-stemmed. It's semi-deciduous. I know that mine will lose a few leaves in wintertime, but because it's warmer here in Perth, it tends to maintain some leaves, just gets a little bit loose on its leaves and a little bit more open. It otherwise, in a cold area, I'm not sure that you're going to grow these well, especially down in Tasmania or even some parts of Victoria and South Australia, but they do grow well in most other parts of Australia. Okay, the thing I love about this one the most is that it has a big double flower, and it's got ruffled edges, so it's a very pretty looking flower, almost like a tutu, a ballet tutu upside down. But they start out white, and then over the next 24 to 36 hours, they'll go a pale pink, and then eventually over the next few hours, they go a dark pink. So you can have all 3 of those colours or tones on the one plant. So that's an interesting one to look out for. Hibiscus mutabilis, or perhaps ask for the Rose of Sharon and it'll come to you that way. Another one that I find, this is a hibiscus. Now, most of us know hibiscus as being 2 to 3 meters tall. This guy is Hibiscus jazzy. And I don't know if you can see the color of the flowers on here. This is a little single flower, and it's the most beautiful orange. It's really clear, it's a crisp color, and this one will flower earlier than the mutabilis. The mutabilis flowers later in spring, and then right on, it's the last one to finish flowering, whereas this one here will start earlier. But this is a dwarf one, and it only grows to 1.5 meters, so you can grow it in a pot, which is fantastic. For those of you maybe on a balcony, or even going back to the woman that was wanting a really nice, not fussy plant for her driveway, this would work really well. It's a small plant, you can keep it small, but it will produce flowers over and over and over for you. So that's the dwarf form, and it's called jazzy, Hibiscus jazzy. So the last one I wanted to bring in of the hibiscus is this one. And this one is called Snow Queen for obvious reasons. It's got this really beautiful foliage. A lot of people say, no, I don't like variegated foliage, but this one is really beautiful. It's crisp, it's clean, it's a white variegation. And as the days get cooler, I don't know if you can see, but the ends of the leaves end up with a pink tinge right on the very end, on the serrated part of the leaf. It has a beautiful red flower. Again, I'll try and see if I can get that to you to see it. It's a single flower. It has recurved petals, so they fold backwards, and it has a very long stamen. Really beautiful. If you Google this plant, Snow Queen, and then go on to images, you'll find some fabulous examples of how to use it as a hedge. So it hedges up really nicely. And like any hibiscus, you can whack at them. You just cut them back. You don't have to be particular about how you prune a hibiscus. So that's the Hibiscus Snow Queen. And just something a little bit different. I tend to grow this one in morning sun in Perth. So if you're in a very hot area where you do have hot, dry winds, variegated leaves are generally a little bit more tender than the others. So I have grown this one in morning sun rather than in afternoon sun or all-day sun. So the plant of the week this week is hibiscus, and there are many different types of hibiscus. Don't just think of what you've seen normally. So get down to your garden centre and see if you can't buy some of those. Okay. Well, the garden gurus have been we're celebrating the 20th anniversary this year. So I hope you've been enjoying that. Here's a sneak peek of what's to come on episode 8.
From April onwards is the perfect time to be planting your brassicas into the garden, and if you're hoping to grow them from seed, they should have been done about 8 to 10 weeks ago, so it's a little bit too late, but starting from a seedling stage is quite easy.
You can see the caterpillar damage on the kale here. It really is shocking stuff. Now, Earthcare White Oil Insect Spray is low toxic, very reliable and safe to use on all your plants, including edibles, because it uses food-grade paraffin oil.
This is a specialist in the world of arid plants and exotic species called Carnut Nursery. It's a destination for those looking for these architectural and highly collectible plants. Like so many specialist garden centres, they have a distinctive focus here on these plants that have evolved over millions of years to survive in the harshest of conditions.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget, tune in on Saturday at 4:30, it'll be well worth it. Okay, so we're back to some questions here. Don't forget to hit that like button for us, will you? Now we're going off to Ringwood North, and Jennifer has asked, she'd like to know the steps to make concrete hard soil into good garden loam, please. Patience, a little bit of gypsum is also worth it. So gypsum is a product that breaks down clay. And I imagine that when you say hard soil, you've got a fair amount of clay in there. So gypsum will open the particles of soil and allow the nutrients and the water and the roots to follow down, and you'll get much better, deeper roots. The other thing is to add organic matter. So you can add some manures. Don't add too much manure if you're living close to a river, but get a good compost and mix that in, and some good mulch, even something like a lupin mulch or a pea hay straw, something like that, and it'll work its way into the soil. It is about patience though. You're not going to have it happen really easily. Be careful if you're starting to plant into it now, Jennifer, because when you make a hole into a heavy soil like that, you almost end up making yourself a bowl that then collects the water. So the water through the winter time, and as you water it with your reticulation, will fill up the bowl, and then of course the roots can often be sitting in water. So if you are tempted to start planting into it now, make sure that you put a good few handfuls of gypsum into your soil that will at least open up the bottom of that hole and allow some sort of drainage. So I think that and some organic matter is probably the best thing you can do for your garden. Okay, so then Judy is in Whyalla in South Australia, and she has a tree dahlia. And how do I propagate it, please? I love tree dahlias. Aren't they beautiful? The way I do it is I'll cut off some of the stems, some of the longer ones that are too tall, getting up in there where the wind is going to damage the flowers. So I'll cut off part of the stem, making sure there's some nodes along it, and then I just lay it down on the soil. You can cover it up, but keep part of it, the top part of that, open to the air, and then you'll find that it'll take roots. I've then, where I've got really good root system coming 2 or 3, I've been able to then cut, and I cut in between the 2 lots of roots and then plant them out from there. So that's how I do it. It's quite easy, and you'll have so many more dahlias in your garden. Okay. So good luck with that, Judy. Margaret is, we're not sure. Oh, Margaret's from WA. Hi, Joanne. My peony rose didn't flower this year, or my crepe myrtles. Would it be the stupid season we've had this year, or do I need to feed it something? Look, peonies are not something that we sell in WA very often. I actually haven't sold them for probably 25 years. I did notice that one of the hardware stores was selling them last year. but I actually don't believe they grow particularly well here unless you're living up in the hills or somewhere where you get a frost, where it's cooler, where it can be kept away from the hot winds also. And yes, I guess to get it to flower, though, you will need to feed it. And in our soils here in WA, there are no minerals in our soil, or very little. The minerals that plants require anyway. We've got some major minerals like the iron, etc., but even those we're a bit lackluster on. But certainly the minor elements we don't have. And if we don't have the minor elements, then the plants can't take up the major elements, so therefore they weaken. So you want to have a really good fertilizer, a good mineral fertilizer for that. Following up from that, you could use the Osmocote organic that we've talked about today, but I still believe that you need to have a look at something like, I actually love Grow Safe. It's the Sabrina Hahn one. I love that. I think it's a great fertilizer that you can use to really boost your plants on. And I'm not sure, my crepe myrtle at home did flower, and I know that the ones we had in the nursery flowered, and I would think that it's probably because you didn't feed them well enough that it's become a bit shy this year. But crepe myrtles will bounce back. They're a very forgiving plant, so just make sure that you give it some fertilizer now, and then again in spring when it's coming out of dormancy, and that should help a lot. Otherwise, I can't think of anything. It has been a crazy season, though, hasn't it? I think everyone around Australia's had crazy seasons in their own right. So good luck to all of us gardeners. All right, so we're going off down to Mandurah. Mandurah is just south of Perth on the coast, and it's Chris. And he's asking how to get rid of nematodes. Oh, what a shame, Chris. Nematodes, generally they like a sandy soil. And I remember many years ago being told that we're seen by other horticulturalists overseas and in the eastern states as Perth as being nematode city. And I think that would be because of our silica sand, and you're certainly on sand in Mandurah. So getting rid of nematodes, we used to have a product called Nemacure, but it really was a very carcinogenic product, and it's been taken off the market. And I honestly don't know of a product now that will work on nematodes. So what you need to do is 2 or 3 things. You need to make sure that your soil, the organic matter in your soil, is in a higher content than what you've got. So using a good organic compost, and maybe putting even some cow manure, sheep manure on your soil. Just be careful, though, with manures that you don't use too much, especially you in Mandurah. If you're by the estuary, you don't want to use too much manure because it does go into the groundwater, and then it ends up in the river, and that's when we get algae bloom. So use it sparingly, but use it where you need it, around your plants. And then I'm told too that if you plant out marigolds, so the smaller marigolds, plant them out, let them come to flower, and apparently the nematodes are attracted to their root system, and you can then lift those out and lift the nematodes out also. But at the same time, you then want to treat your soil. So there's no one easy way to do it. You're going to have to do 2 or 3 things. I've not tried this, but I've also been told that 10 parts brown sugar, or maybe even molasses, and 1 part water, and put that in, and that will encapsulate the nematodes also. Not sure, because I haven't done it, but I have heard that. So good luck with it, but just remember the main thing is to keep the organic matter up in your soil. So thank you. Okay, we're still in WA and we're at Gosnells. So Fiona has asked, I was wondering if I could please advise which soil is best for raised garden beds intended for planting veggies in. Look, I would use a mix of maybe some good potting mix down near the bottom if they're a good size, depending on the size. If you've got those ones that are almost 1 metre high, I've actually done layers of pea straw with compost, and pea straw compost, pea straw compost. You will find that after the first season, it will drop considerably. So you don't want to put something in those garden beds that take a long time, like maybe beetroot, that takes a long time to produce, because your beetroot will be down near the bottom and you won't be able to replenish your soil in those. Otherwise, I actually go to a company called the Green Life Soil Company. And I believe they're one of the best soil companies in Perth. And they have a fantastic vegetable mix that you can use. They will deliver to you if you're a long way away. But give Linda or Paul or the guys out at Green Life Soil Company, give them a call and they'll talk soil with you and they'll work out what you need and can certainly get that delivered. Or you can pick it up. They've even got trailers that you can borrow and use to take your soil home. So that's where I would head, given that you're in WA. If you're in other parts of Australia, look out for a really good soil producer. Talk to people about it, about who is good around. Talk to your garden centre that you trust, and they'll be able to give you some good ideas about where to go, who's a good supplier of those sort of things. It can get expensive using bags just from the garden centre, so we tend to send people to the soil suppliers rather than try and fill it up with bags of soil from us. We can do the refilling. Okay, so I hope that's helped you, Fiona. Then we're off to Tamworth in New South Wales. And Andrew has said, thank you for being there. My Robin Gordons have quite yellowish leaves and are not responding to iron chelate. They flower well. Is there anything I can do from them looking sickly leaves? Many thanks in advance. So yellow leaves can be a couple of different things. Yellow leaves can be that they are underfed. They can be that they're burnt from the sun, that maybe there's not enough mulch on the soil, or it's, you've had lots of hot wind and burning. But more often than not, it will be because of fertiliser. Now, you don't need to overfeed your grevilleas or any of your native plants. But what we find is quite often we move into a house or a house when it's built has the topsoil taken away, all the good stuff is taken away, and we're left with sand and depleted sand. So we do need to add things into our soil, even for our native plants, or you find this sort of thing can happen. By using iron chelates, which is, to me, it's not the good meal. It's the, if you've got a cold, you take some vitamin C or some olive oil extract. This is the same sort of thing. So it's a short-term result. It's a short-term solution for your plants. You're better, again, to go back to something like a good mineral fertilizer that has a balance of minerals in it, so that it gives it not just the iron chelate, but it gives it magnesium and boron, etc. All the things that it requires to have. It's kind of like honey sandwiches every day for us is not good. You've got to have a balanced diet, and so do plants, okay? So I would suggest that you need to do that. I wouldn't maybe give it a little tip prune, but if they're flowering well, they're also putting a lot of energy into their flowers and not into their foliage, so they do need assistance. Okay. So it appears that we're almost at the end. Make sure you hit the like button for us, will you? We're very sorry if we didn't get onto your questions today. They've just been flying at us, and there's so many coming through, which is really great. And thank you, everybody, for bothering to put them in. Hold on to those questions, put them up again next week, and we'll make sure that we endeavour to answer everything we can. We really appreciate all the engagement that we're having. Robin, our wonderful producer, she'll send out a message to all the seed winners after today's show. This weekend is Easter long weekend. Time to give a bulb. Forget the chocolate. Give a bulb for Easter present. Trevor will be back next Wednesday. So some of the states around Australia have a holiday, public holiday on Tuesday also. So therefore, Trevor has decided that we'll come back on Wednesday. So tune in on Wednesday for the Garden Gurus Live at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time and 10 p.m. for the WA viewers. Don't forget to get your video and picture submissions in via Facebook by Wednesday. Remember to state your name, the state you're living in, and the suburb. It really does help us to be able to direct the answer to you in particular. Remember, you can always jump on our website and catch up with previous stories from the Garden Gurus at thegardengurus.tv, or our YouTube channel, which is also The Garden Gurus at .tv. You can listen back to today's live stream and catch up on previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Audible. And don't forget to tune in into Channel 9 this Saturday at 4:30, and you'll catch episode 8 of the Garden Gurus Autumn 2022. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, you'll have Trevor next week. So happy gardening, everyone. Have a great day.
This live stream is brought to you by Still and Evergreen Garden Care. Still is Australia's most trusted brand of garden power tools, backed by 95 years of German engineering excellence. To get your hands on their range, visit your local Still dealer today or visit still.com.au. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the best known and trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. To be inspired and easily create and maintain your garden, head to lovethegarden.com.
Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.